Tempo Storm wins game number 1. Now just 2 more, and they are smooth sailing to the mid-season brawl. But B-Step want to stop that right now. So what do? Do they pick first pick? Do they pick the Battleground?
We're lying. We know the Battleground. We actually have some. I just feel like we should throw it out because this is actually a really cool question.
Okay.
When it comes down who's on what map, who's not, is essentially there's a big question that B-Step has to ask themselves with the series. They're going to Battlefield of Eternity, and a lot of that is based on the fact that we know Tempo Storm's not very successful onto the map.
It is also one of the most picked battlegrounds of B-Step, so it is a favorite regardless of their record, which is 4-6.
Yes, which is, you know, it's better in Tempo. I mean, you know, and very few things in this world of competitive Heroes of the Storm. In fact, can you say, well, it's better than Tempo? So I take that as already a win, a step in the right direction here for B-Step. But yes, this is they have to ask themselves, well, they did ask themselves, is it more about where Tempo is going to be weak or what they think fits into their strengths as a team? And obviously they have opted for that of the weakness of Tempo Storm. And why I say that is we saw in the last game, we told that time and time again, B-Step is the team who banks on the late game. Battlefield of Eternity is the biggest early game map in the game. So that essentially is literally going, our strengths of the late game, we're going to try and, you know, not worry about those too much. We're more worried about Tempo Storm's weaknesses than our strengths.
If Tempo Storm can bank on B-Step not performing until they get to level 16 equivalent, why don't they just pick something like Syndragosa or Sylvanas?
That's a good point. You know, focus on their compositions to the very, very early game. The one counter argument to that would be is that this group of players has never been overly dominant with any kind of macro play, and a lot of those are that macro. The inverse or other option you can move into that direction would be the heavy early game, but through kills. And that is where you see the Tyrande come out. And yes, they are very successful whenever they can have those type of compositions, or at least when they volunteer to move into those. It just does that separate too far from the meta itself to be justified as a pick here for B-Step.
Was B-Step the team that played Alarak on their last? It was.
Yeah,
they played Alarak with Sergeant Hammer the last time they were on Battlefield of Eternity, and McIntyre played an excellent Alarak.
We have seen a surprising amount of Alarak, actually, kind of in North America here. Pop it up left and right, and Tempo Storm is no exception to that either. Psalm is an Alarak player. Pretty good one at that.
I think Tempo Storm would love a Greymane, but also possibly an Abathur. So play these bans right, and there might be a possibility that they can get one or the other. Granted, they'd love to have Abathur with Greymane.
I actually think that B-Step's best ban is just Mouth right out the gates. So then you get one of those two problems, and you get the Uther on the other side to deny. You remove all the circumstances in which it becomes a major problem, but you also have objectively powerful heroes for your own draft, right? And you remove the Malfurion, you have the upper hand by having the Uther for yourself, and at best they get either a Greymane or they get the Abathur.
A new Barak ban from B-Step.
This is what we've seen for the most part. If there is a new filler for Tassadar, it in fact, closest thing to it is a new Barak in North America. So no surprise he fell into that secondary ban, Tempo.
That Anu Barak ban could, allowing Anu Barak to be on Tempo Storm's side of the battlefield could stop a lot of things that are liked by B-Step. Specifically things like if they want to have Sergeant Hammer again, well, he's a good diver to stop her. Also, if they want to get Li Ming, they've played Li Ming before on Battlefield of Eternity, his Scarabs stop her skill shots, and he has the spell armor. So there's a lot of things that are possible now with a new Barak out of the way, depending on how B-Step wants to play this map.
That's a good point that you bring up there. Tempo, 15 seconds left before we reveal. I guess it's not truly a reveal, more that they decide what they're going to commit to. I like the Greymane. I think it's the safest, but they're going to go with that Uther. Again, oh man. So the Uther, it's one of two things. It's either that Tempo believes that they will get Again, kind of that Greymane, which I think is unrealistic considering Greymane has been a high priority-ish hero for B-Step
Yep.
the last couple of times that they have played this map. But the Uther means that they essentially view it that there's two prime targets to give a D-Shield to, and I'm beginning to think, like, is that like a Genji on the side of Tempo Storm get it busted out here? They take the Greymane to be like, no, you aren't taking both, and then it's like, surprise, here's a Genji.
I think it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So what is scarier for B-Step, and do B-Step consider this? Because we know that they have had problems before when metas change.
Yeah.
And this isn't a meta shift, it's a new hero coming in though. It's a slight, yeah.
Uther, I would say Uther single-handedly changed the meta. I would say Divine Shield and him being relevant changes the meta.
Right, but he was in last weekend.
Yeah, and Genji now being one of those people he enables, manipulates it that much more. Though it is only one character, there are, I guess in short, there are so many variables within drafting itself that one new character, even if they're not useful, debatably can still mix up a meta.
Yeah.
It's very strange how it works. But like, for instance, at the top of the draft, like, you don't often pick the strongest character in the game, or like when you know that there's overly synergistic characters that work left and right, why aren't they going to be picked? It's just that a draft is not a direct translation of actual value that the heroes bring.
Yeah, I was meaning more like we don't have the changes that have come into the Nexus since then.
Oh,
It's just Genji who was added for this weekend.
I forgot that we had a recent
yeah.
balance patch that.
Right.
Yeah, no, we are not on the, I don't know, Genji balance patch afterwards. We're only on the Genji release patch here
Genji
for HGC.
2.0?
Genji 2. It's so weird calling it 2.0 too, because it's like, I don't know, I feel like 2.0 is too long of a thing to commit that is the 2.0 patch. But here we go. Tempo got themselves the Muradin. They've got the Abathur. Still no hint towards the Genji at all, but the Greymane Interior pick up here for B-Step. So what I was going to say, though, to the counter the Genji, you take the Abathur. Because Genji has no race on his own. He has to commit all into the fight, and he can only do that post-10. Abathur is so good in those scenarios very early on. He might be vulnerable to dying to Genji diving, actually, something I haven't worked around with too much on my own time on how effective can he dive back there, get the kill, and get out. But I'm guessing it's probably pretty realistic, so maybe that is a concern.
B-Step's ban makes me wonder if it still will be a Genji for Tempo Storm, or if possibly there are some other options that are going to come in instead. We know of Psalms, Zeratul, maybe an Illidan.
Yeah, it could be an Illidan. It could be a Valeera as well. But I mean, those aren't as exciting, you know? Those aren't the new hero,
Those
Gilly.
don't make your casters
No,
excited.
they don't.
Tempo Storm.
As obviously, you draft solely with the intent of my entertainment. Okay, so here, what are we going to see for B-Step? They have, I mean, shout out to them for committing to the Tyrael. Already a huge fan of that. It's just what else do they want? With a Muradin, with an Uther, Lunara might thrive in the circumstances just based on enabling Greymane by slowing everyone, complements the race, reveals if it's a stealth, and above all else is semi-effective, we'll say, into the Uther.
Generally, B-Step play double warrior compositions now that K1 Pro has switched over to the melee, strictly because while he's switching over, obviously it's going to be a somewhat lesser hero pool while he figures things out. Tyrael is one of the main warriors that he's been playing, but likely there will still be another warrior as they draft Arthas.
Yeah, the Arthas. So this is like what I thought was the top of the, going to be top of the meta like 2 patches ago. Right now for B-Step's draft, they have a Tyrael, Arthas, Greymane, and a Mouth. Like, 2 patches ago, I don't think you could have asked for a more terrifying comp. It's not that it is not still terrifying, it's still a very good composition, a little less value in terms of power overall, and it still kind of meets into the problems of Abathur on Battlefield of Eternity.
And Arthas is going to scare away this idea of this melee who is going to be all in on, right? Yeah. You have Uther with Divine Shield. You have Abathur now, too. You have put a lot of eggs into this melee carry basket. And Arthas, he's going to take some of those eggs away.
There it is.
It makes it harder, at least.
It was the Genji and the Cassia coming out here for Tempo in this game. Interesting choice. Last pick. Ooh. It's the only reason I don't want Lunara is because the Genji, I think, can do really well into her. No way to escape from him whatsoever. So then who can do the proper amount of damage in this type of composition? Li Ming is okay, double resets, but you want more sustained DPS when you have that double warrior. Who is it? I'm missing something. Actually, Hammer isn't terrible. Not gonna lie, Sergeant Hammer wouldn't be terrible. Then move into Giant Killer.
Yeah.
Valla would die to the Genji.
Yes. Follow Lunara, though I think that they're headed toward Lunara.
I think so
Even
too.
still, it's a B-step thing. They're versus Uther. He's a solo support, although Abathur gives him Carapace.
What? They go with Sil.
I was suggesting that for the other team, though I'll take it.
I will say, I'm gonna need a minute actually with this one. That was a nice old wrench just thrown in there.
So we have a very strong double warrior composition for B-Step. They have Tyrael, Arthas. They have Arthas to try to slow down Genji and trap him so that he can get taken out. They've got Twilight Dream for that too to try to take him down. Wailing Arrow, so a mega silence comp, the Librarian composition, if you would like to call it that, which I do. But Tempo Storm, it's funny. It's like the old versus the new. This Protect the Greymane, Sylvanas. You've got Double Warrior for B-Step, and then you have Cassia and Genji with Abathur on Battlefield of Eternity. Huh.
I think we've got a game 4 is what I think we've got minimum after this. I'm just playing scenario over scenario in my head, and again, without a just mindless mistake that gets capitalized on the other side, Tempo Storm has no way to force the issue, and their biggest advantage is the fact that Abathur can side soak. And as long as B-Step just goes, well, they can't race, and neither can we, and they're side soaking and just kind of like, it's one of the few games where both teams should kind of ignore the objective. Honestly, they kind of should, because they commit too much by trying to get it itself because they don't do damage fast enough. And so with Abathur soaking, you have no global to be able to match it. You just ignore the immortal yourself because your opponent wants that to happen, and B-Step has no race.
They've got a double with Greymane and with Sylvanas with Barb Shot at 7.
Barb Shot is decent, but again, it will die to a heavy response out of Tempo Storm defensively. Like, you can't just look at it as like the raw racing damage coming out from Tempo Storm is pretty high overall, but there's no incentive for Tempo to need to take that race ever. It's always going to be B-Step plays defensive while Abathur is getting soaked somewhere. So then, and Tempo Storm just goes, thanks for playing passive the whole time.
Yeah, but they know they can't do that. So let's see what adjustments they make versus that Abathur for game number 2.
I mean, they know it. They know it. But it is, it's just B-Step needs to find a way to not worry about anything until 10. Like, if the game can just not be lost up until 10, and they can turn their heroics online, their composition's insane. They win one fight, and then they've got a Sylvanas. Like, things can work out as long as they don't struggle too hard in that area. And I think why they will is because of the over-defensiveness they built by a double warrior on BOE, and then Abathur is going to give them a level advantage for tempo. And then quickly we see that 10-9 scenario that B-Step is vulnerable to.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, I mean, I do know why, but for me, I'm looking at the compositions of both teams, and I'm looking at the second Immortal. The second Immortal is going to make so much of a difference. B-Step using Sylvanas and her trait to do what it does and shut down structure so they can get an early tower.
The team fight, though, of B-Step is insane. It's just, it's all about this stage, this laning part here for B-Step. I just don't know if they have the patience to kind of let it go. You know, a lot of that, when I posture, what if we just don't? That's a lot of what B-Step needs to be doing this game.
Especially having Sylvanas on Battlefield of Eternity.
You get so eager to have that thing.
Yeah, you want the Immortal. You feel like you have to have it because you have Sylvanas.
You were born for it. And that's quite frequently a mentality that gets punished when Sylva's picked. Once she started falling slowly but surely out of the meta, everybody was like, you know, when I'm a Sylvanas, we got to get desperate. We got to get those objectives because how valuable she can be. Another shout out to B-Step in the laning phase here. They're trying to take advantage over what is debatably the shortest and most irrelevant laning phase of any map. They're trying to capitalize on the Abathur factor. And this is already a different sign again from this team. They go, oh, Abathur is weak in the early game. Who cares how short it is? We should be getting something. Stun, and good night. That's Greymane down.
They did get something, but so did Tempo Storm, getting a pick on Greymane at the start of the Immortal phase. Doesn't feel good for B-Step, but he will be back momentarily. iDream teleports to Haunting Wave. Tempo Storm not being contested away from this Immortal so far. The faster they can get this to the halfway point, the safer it will be for them to take it down in the next phase.
Nice amount of poke here from Tempo. And again, it's only getting better by the fact that Abathur, you always got to consider the side sub factor. So even not racing this is going to be fine. Psalm, there's only one dash, using his passive to kind of hop, skip, and a jump out. He does kind of have like that cheating double jump factor, you know, old school Crash Bandicoot style. I don't know, for when I think of double jumps, I always think of Crash Bandicoot for some reason.
Ooh, I think of Mario.
Really?
Yeah. Although I guess those were the triple jumps, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, woohoo! Yippee!
Yeah, when you got it from the angle. Either way, the race is pretty swiftly won here by Tempo Storm, and the back half of it's not going to change.
Especially with Sledgehammer.
Especially with Sledgehammer.
Good old Sledgehammer on Battlefield of Eternity. Half shielding, a little less for Tempo Storm's first Immortal.
But they've got an Abathur composition, so that, yes, that is not that much shielding. It's a good Immortal no matter what comp you have. When you sit there and you go, but we have an Abathur comp, you go, oh.
And
so
you deny one from a Sylvanas comp.
Yeah, it's a double win here. Tempo Storm taking an early lead, setting the tone 3 minutes in. Sledgehammer could do work here down with Fury. They're going to take out minimum front wall of this fort, possibly more than that after if they want to get aggressive.
Howling Blast slows things down for Tempo Storm. There's a stun, blind to Arthas. Takes half of his health bar in damage, but it does get Tempo Storm away from the rest of the team, so that is cleared up without too much damage taken on the fort. Full smite build for K1 Pro's Tyrael. More damage to heroes at 1, and then Swift Retribution increases the movement speed bonus that he gives. So he's going to be giving movement speed to 2 heroes who benefit from it a lot. We've got Arthas and we've got Greymane. Unfortunately for Arthas, he gets caught, so Tempo Storm claims another life.
And that kind of stuff is just unacceptable here in this game for B-Step if they want to win it. Because, again, the compositions, it's the compositions and the map, but the variables that B-Step needs to be even okay in this game. I talked about 1 through 9, how important that is for them to just hold their own. We haven't even managed to make it to the 3rd talent tier, and it looks like Tempo Storm is pretty clearly establishing they want to win this game. It's just maybe a bit too much for B-Step to recover.
Level 7 is here at 4. Genji picked Shuriken Mastery, so he'll be stacking those up to get the 2 charges back once he hits 75 heroes when he uses Cyber Agility. May pair that with Double Jump to get 2 charges of Cyber Agility at level 13, but there's also Shingen, which we've seen that paired with 2 for a little bit of extra damage if you can hit all 3 Shuriken on a target. Shuriken is so funny. It is one of those words where the plural is the same.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not shurikens, it's shuriken.
It's like
3 shuriken, 1 shuriken.
What about 20?
Shuriken.
342.
The number doesn't matter, Dread.
Well, you know, zebras get classified as different words depending on the quantity, much like other animals, but they get specific ones depending on how many are in the group of zebras themselves. So, you know, I figured shuriken might fall on that weird anomaly.
Why?
So, I don't know, actually, why zebras are an outlier there. It was something I've just, you know, I like hearing about how you identify plural groups of animal. Ooh, the Storm Bolt! Not, excuse me, the Storm Bolt, but the Hammer Justice. They get the Tyrael caught out. K1 Pro going down. More early games scuttles. Not working out for B-Step.
I think you meant scuffles there.
Scuffles? Scuttles?
Scuttles is what a crab does to get away from it.
That was what Tyrael was doing as he was getting stun locked to death.
That is true. I was hoping maybe that B-Step could use that moment to deal more damage to the Immortal, but unfortunately it's in defensive positioning, and they could not risk going around, but they do have Barb Shot now, and that is why they were able to do so much so quickly to the first half of the Immortal. The problem, though, is that level lead for Tempo once again.
And they realize that B-Step is getting aggressive, understanding that they've got that 90% of a level away from this game possibly being over even. That is how dramatic it is here on Battlefield of Eternity. We've seen these circumstances, and if you have never seen them before, you're in for a doozy if Tempo Storm locks in even a successful fight and a well-shielded Immortal pre-10.
Cattle's fairly low on mana and in health. This might be the last chance that B-Step gets for a team fight now that Tyrael is back, before heroic abilities, before a snowball out of control ends the game potentially for Tempo Storm. Uther doing what he can. Psalm jumps in the back, dashes out.
No, Avatar's trying to get the side soak as best as he can, but this 4-man defense squad is slowly losing a large amount of HP. Cattle zoom, there goes the Stormbolt, beautiful pre-cleanse coming out there from APM, but the dash onto Psalm, it gets him the reset here, and now June looking to retreat. Is McIntyre chasing him down? The Ghost, he's gonna be able to dish out the heals. B-Step is just getting ripped apart though by Psalm on that Genji.
Psalm doing everything he can to get his team heroic abilities with Avatar, and that has been achieved. He had Dragon Blade. We'll even have a secondary Genji that does not take out K1 Pro, but with everybody scuttling away from B-Step, Tempo Storm gets the next Immortal.
It's gotta be, what's a, you know, when you gotta walk and you've got a brisk walk, what's the step up from scuttling? Because that is what the Immortal's about to do on this top lane.
Maybe
B-Step
scurrying?
Scurrying. It is going to scurry its way through B-Step's base because, again,
I don't think an Immortal scurries.
I don't know. I just know B-Step has no 10. And
it proudly marches on, marches forward.
And it is going to be just breaking B-Step's base. They are lucky in the fact that they will get 10. Tempo Storm was too slow to pick up their 10s and be overly aggressive with that advantage. So because of that, that's going to be a defensible keep.
Divine Shield still available. Ultimate Evolution back. Avatar still up, and Ball Lightning too. Tempo Storm escorts the Immortal the rest of the way through the keep towers as heroic abilities are here. Does King Caffeine take Syndragosa and chase them down? He's considering what he wants to get here.
It's too close to the fort. Even if he hits the Syndra at that point, he goes with the Army of the Dead. Tyrael was moving up for that rotation to see if he could get himself that pick. K1 Pro should know that Cawthon's over that wall. I think the minion did move far enough forward that he knows he's hiding there. But nothing to be gained.
I still think they think it can be gained.
He's known. Tempo Storm coming down to save the Worm. This is the saving, I don't know, the Worm squad. I was coming up with something witty and then just flopped, you know?
I like Worm Squad.
The Worm Squad.
Worm Squad, activate! We must save our leader. Still waiting on Cursed Bullet versus Go for the Throat.
K1 Pro dodged the Stormbolt. Not the, or the Stormbolt due to the Smite there. I almost mispronounced the Stormbolt again. Something about Stormbolt today is just every crowd control, in fact, is a Stormbolt. 13 Talonteers out of range for Tempo. They do have the Avatar escorting that camp up on top, being a problem. Psalm can 1v1 I Dream. Luckily, he won't take any free poke. He's got to drop the Demon's Blade if he's going to. No, he got all 3 Qs. Oh, man. So Shuriken can actually, all 3 of the Shuriken spread out, but the distance to the single target, the closer you are, the more likely to hit all 3. And if you hit all 3, again, the number that you read on the tooltip is amplified by 3. And he has found himself speccing into his 13 talent, making sure that if all 3 hit, he gets bonus damage, which is why I was talking about how much damage output we saw him do there. That was purely based on the fact that his 13 talent tier was hit.
Yeah, he has Shingen, plus he has the first iteration, or the first amount of questing done for Shuriken Mastery, so that's more damage too.
Got to be busting it out there. The second set allows him to, if you open up onto a backliner, use your passive, you get a couple more Shuriken to throw out there. I'm glad you told me about the Shuriken thing, though, because I definitely would have said Shurikens right there. And who knows?
You made such a fool of yourself.
Like, honestly, the internet would have been in flames. I would have had to retire.
It would have been such a terrible place to be in, not unlike where B-Step is currently sitting in this game. This isn't the end of the world to be at. They could fight with this talent tier. Does give more damage, more blinds. Some hard to lock down for the team of B-Step.
It looks fancy. Nobody got any positive trade. McIntyre possibly caught out. He forced a cleanse out of APM. Stormbolt is going to land on to Malfurion. The Shaman Camp still pressuring top, and Abathur is going to escort that thing right on in. So this is a very good spot to be in right now if you're a Tempo Storm fan, because they've got themselves a keep coming up.
Love what Som has been doing. He pressures one side, doesn't work, dashes out. Once he has it again, he tries to put pressure on another side. He's looking for an intro. Wailing Arrow catches him looking for one of those windows. But the rest of the team can't follow up, so Som is fine. And going over, maybe trying to check out Greymane, see if he can 1v1 there. Seeing Greymane though, there's going to be a clone. Double Genji, double the fun. Arthas is blown up.
Twilight Dream connects onto a lot of people, but Psalm has himself a reset. He's gonna gain another one and zoom right on out of there. 2 people dead. Temple Storm, iDream has got so much pressure from Psalm at all points in time in this game. Divine Shield wasn't even used. Not going to be needed because, again, Greymane was ridding of that Shaman Camp to stop the keep. So that 4 versus 5, pretty easy pickings for Tempo.
Dread, you know when you've got a fly in the house that you keep trying to swat?
Yeah.
And then it just keeps, you're like, oh, it's flown out the window, it's gone. And then it keeps coming back. And then all of a sudden you get a second fly that you're trying to swat away and you're just like, okay, I'm done. I'm leaving this room. This room is gone. I don't want to be here anymore. That's what happens when B-Step deals with a double Genji.
It's just zip-zapping around, you know. Arthas goes in. Sanctification is going to be dropped. They're all ending this fight. June splitting from the rest of the team. 2-man Howling Blast. Cassie is already going to be gone. Psalm onto the back line. Force the ice block out of APM. He dashes forward. McIntyre ripping through. Fury goes for the throw. Doesn't get the proc, but the disengage and Q from K1 Pro seals the deal. June, it's a long way to home with the caffeine slowing you down. 3 for nothing. B-Step. It's hit the 13-minute mark. Time to start playing the game, boys. I don't know what the time mark that they decide that it's time to commit, but you know, this game, it was the 13.
It almost feels like it is completely dependent on the map, so it might be more of a feeling like, oh crap, we're about to lose a keep. Game time, let's go. Here's our first Immortal, but they will lose a keep for it.
Yeah, there's no way around this one. Double Genji, backdoor, Psalm not even needed, so a keep down. B-Step down almost a second talent, or another talent tier here in this game. 16 will be picked up, meaning their siege is going to be ineffective. It's best for them to split push, but they're not going to. They're going to push up with this. The reason why you split push here is so, again, you just don't risk a fight. Temple Storm could easily go up here, play defensive, dive your backline, like they kind of started there, and win this fight, get rid of the Immortal for free. Everything about this is going to be appealing for Tempo.
Again, it's the Sylvanas factor, though. They want to be able to enable the Immortal with Sylvanas. We have Sylvanas, we might as well take advantage of it. Caterpillar has to get Divine Shield, though, and that's a welcome start. There's still no ultimate evolution that B-Step has to deal with, so they're able to make this work. Howling Blast again, King Caffeine and McIntyre taking damage. Fury going for the chase, trying to bring down McIntyre, and Muradin gets it.
K1 Pro even went for the shield over the wall to try and keep him up. APM taking too much damage from Psalm, getting 1 reset, dropping the Sanct, but it's not going to matter as he's already dead. Tyrael quick to follow. Arthas is not far, not long for this world. Wow, K1 Pro survived for half a second.
Did you see iDream? iDream was just like, good luck, guys. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, he mounts up and he's just like, all right, if I don't move, there's no way they'll know I'm here. Temple Storm marching towards the base, 15 minutes in. No Sanct. Greymane no go for the throw. This is probably going to be it. We'll find out. As B-Step shielding now is gone, Greymane's back.
Greymane's here to help. It's only iDream and Greymane remaining to deal with all of Tempo on the core, and that is just simply not enough. 17% and falling is the core of B-Step. Tempo Storm takes game 2.
Dragonshire for the late game. Battle of the Field of Eternity with the early game. Doesn't matter. Tempo 2-0 in this series. The only map left, possibly, for B-Step to have a chance, according to our theories that we've built so far, is Tomb. Doesn't fit to their strengths too well. Macro game is not a B-Step thing, but it's one that, again, it might be their best focus because they do really have a shot as long as it makes it the late game. I don't understand how always, but they do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Tempo Storm also likes Tomb.
So then do you, again, okay, so if we take the question we experienced B-Step answering in the last one, which is my team's strengths versus my opponent's weaknesses,
Weaknesses.
and they lost, they either do one of two things. They either go, they commit even harder to the thought process and going, well, we did this that was a little too close to their interest. We go way out of the zone, something like Warhead or, craziness. Or you do, go with the tomb, go more towards your strengths. You back out of the thought process of Tempo Storm's weaknesses. You go, no, screw that. We're going with B-Step's strengths, and we picked